Welcome to Legal Wellbeing in Action, the podcast series of the New Mexico Wellbeing Committee. For the month of April, we are focusing on the wellbeing initiatives at the UNM School of Law. Now, 2022's campaign features what a healthy legal community looks like. And for February and March, we featured the solo and small firm attorneys, and really what was unique to their area of the legal community. With me today to talk about those same type of unique areas at UNM School of Law is Miss Bonnie Stepleton, Miss Christina Bustamante, and our episode host, Mr. Mark Blosser. Welcome, you three. I'm pretty excited to have you here with us today to talk about well-being for our law students. And the many conversations I've had, I'm always interested to hear about what's happening at the school. Many people see our students to be exactly what they are, the next thriving generation of attorneys that will uphold the profession. And as we know, all of us play many roles in our lives. You're not just future attorneys, you're human beings. You're somebody's son, daughter, friend, brother, sister. The list does go on in those roles. And I'll leave it to our speakers today to tell us about what they do for well-being, but also what the law school does to foster wellness to our students as future attorneys, and ultimately helping them become the best human beings they can be while they're there. To our listeners, thank you for tuning into Legal Wellbeing in Action. We hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Sanessa, for that introduction, and thank you for having us on Legal Wellbeing in Action. Today's episode is about well-being here at the UNM School of Law. My name is Mark Blosser. I'm a 2L here at the UNM School of Law, and I'm joined in the studio by Bonnie Stapleton and Christina Bustamante. Christina, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name's Christina. I am a 1L here at the UNM School of Law. Prior to being at the school, I was a 911 dispatcher, which made me passionate about the law and, of course, brought me to law school here in New Mexico.
Hi, I'm Bonnie. I am Director of Student and Career Services at UNM Law School. I am a graduate of this law school. I graduated in 1987, and I had a career in mental health and disabilities law, insurance defense, doing workers' compensation, mediation, and then I've been in this position now. I'm in my 15th year. So I'm really delighted to be here, and I thank you all for having me.
Thank you. And I thought one of the things we could start this conversation with, because I've been on the SBA Wellness Committee this year and have learned that wellness looks different to different people, and a community that supports well-being looks different to different people. So I thought we could start by just individually kind of saying what well-being means to us personally, and what does a community that supports well-being look like to each of us?
So I'll start. I think that well-being is often thought of kind of as a physical aspect, but I really don't think that you can look at well-being from just a physical or mental aspect. I think that there's a relationship between the two. So when we talk about SBA's mental health and well-being committee, I think it kind of plays a role into both your mental health and your physical health, especially because there's a relationship, and whether you are physically taking care of yourself can have positive impacts on your mental health as well. And a community that supports well-being, to me, is a community that is compassionate and understanding, that doesn't try to minimize people's past or mental health, and is accepting and even works with people who may have a mental or physical disability, or even just having a bad mental health day. I think that that's something that a community that's supportive will be understanding of and work with students regarding.
So for me, I agree with a lot of what Christina said. For our students and for myself, especially for me, I feel like it's a holistic thing, the physical aspects of well-being, as well as the emotional, mental health, and spiritual even. I think that's another component that isn't well discussed. It seems sensitive. Whatever it means to you, though, I think it's important that we go inside and have a way of being kind to ourselves, as well as having others be kind to us. And that's the theme too for community. For me, a supportive community has adequate resources, and that's something that I think the law school does very well for students. And we're kind of excited about some of the new stuff, as well as proud of what we've had in place for quite a while now. I think it also means giving space to the person and being accepting of wherever they are in that moment for whatever reason. and encouraging them, accommodating them, and then making sure that the person has a chance to recover or reset, whatever word you want to use, to keep going, because it can be really difficult, discouraging, isolating. And I think another thing that's important that, again, we don't necessarily think about too much at law school is the importance of your family and friends in that calculus, because no one comes to law school in a vacuum, and there's impact on everyone. It's a group thing for all of us. We need to have that support net in place. So those are my two thoughts on my personal definition as well as what the community looks like.
Yeah, I think that what I've learned listening to your answers right now and talking to other students and experiencing myself is that it's a really personal experience what wellness is, and it's not a one size fits all for anybody. One person's wellness is another person's stress. You know, some people like to hike, some people like yoga, some people like cooking and as a way to unwind, and it's multifaceted. Some people feel the need more spiritual guidance and fulfillment, and others really like to focus on their health. And I think it's just such a personal thing. And that segues to what I think a community is. It's a community that supports well-being is one that understands that it is a personal thing and that it's not a one size fits all or something that you can put on a checklist and just check off. And a supportive community is one that kind of tailors itself to that variety and allows a lot of individuals to seek wellness in their own way and provides resources for that. And I think that's one of the things UNM does well is there's a pretty big variety of resources here. And I think that is a nice segue into talking about some of the stuff that we do here. When I think wellness, when I start at the very tippy top with the most official and most organized, I think SHAC comes to mind. What comes to mind for you all?
I think for me, my favorite resources has got to be partly the student organizations. Bonnie had mentioned, your community, and I think social support is huge, especially in law school. And our school's really great about having a bunch of different student organizations for different people who are interested in different things, so that even if you don't come to school with maybe all of that social support, for people like me who came from out of state with no family or friends in New Mexico, it's really easy to build up your social support system with all of these student organizations. Like for me, I'm part of Future Prosecutors. I'm also part of Women's Law Caucus, and as well as MALSA. So there's a lot I think that you can build, even if you don't come here with your own support group. You can build a community of people who are going through exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, I agree. For me, as the student services person at the law school, sort of managing the resources that we have that are more traditional, or what would be thought of as more even medical in terms of their approach, the student health and counseling is SHAC that Mark talked about. That's the counseling group that's part of the overall student health department that main campus has. What we've been really blessed with is a half-time, fully dedicated, embedded psychological counselor, usually a master's in social work or other PhD therapist, who has an office at the law school and is available every afternoon for appointments as well as walk-ins. It changed a little bit during the COVID because SHAC was still operating, but they were doing their sessions online, and that'll eventually evolve back into in-person. But the point is, as an institution, we've done everything we can to make sure that stays in place. And it starts even with fundraising from our alumni to raise the money to pay the salary for that person to be here and make sure that that person is available for our students. So I think that's really important and shows extreme dedication on the part of administration and a commitment to the idea that that's something important. And I hope, and I think it comes without stigma. And that's another thing I love about it, is it doesn't mean that our students are less mentally healthy. To me, it means they're smart. They're getting help when they need it, and it's great. We also have other things. We have massage therapists now coming in on a regular basis for a much reduced cost to do massages. We have a brand new wellness center that was built with generous donations from alumni and others. And it has, you know, the usual stuff you expect, a big room for doing yoga and all the Pilates kind of stuff you do, as well as some weight room equipment stuff. And it has a dedicated meditation room, which I also find extraordinary. So it's even recognized there that that's a separate thing that's really important. And it's got this nice lighting and the special pillows you sit on and all that stuff. So there's a professor here, Natalie Martin, who I would like to give a shout out to. She's a yogi and she teaches yoga free to students and staff and faculty, which is really generous of her to do. We have a good relationship with our state bar wellness. People were on the committee of the state bar, obviously, and the judge and lawyer assistance program, JLAP, has some of the more traditional services available to those with a substance use disorder. 12-step meetings happen. There's a professor here who's very open about being a recovering person and leads a group on Mondays. We have speakers, therapy dogs, all kinds of stuff like that. I don't know, I'm leaving some things out. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. So I'll let you guys chime in on some other ideas.
Yeah, I think the massage therapist coming a couple times this semester has been one of the most interesting things that happened at the law school this semester. And I had a few friends who went and did it and had a great experience. It was really reasonable. I think it's $50 for a 50-minute massage, which is extremely reasonable for a massage. And yoga is, I think, 3 times a week usually. I see the sign, but I'm not much of a yogi myself. I'm more of a hiking for the physical activity. And then JLAP, like you were saying, does participate quite a bit. And I think what I appreciate the most about the JLAP program is it's just, I'm not participated, but it's consistently communicated to students. I had an email about it this morning and it's just always available. It's nice to know that it's there and it's constantly communicated, and it's something that I think is really consistent here at the law school.
If I could add, in regard to the yoga classes, so they're usually every Thursday. I've gone a few times just to see how it is, and I absolutely love it. There have been a few times where some professors have come and joined us as well. And I really like kind of that breaking down of the barrier, because, you know, sometimes you see your professors and maybe they're a little bit intimidating, but once you have them doing yoga together, it makes people seem a bit more personable. And I really like that we kind of have that different environment to also interact with professors. And from what I understand, there are classes during the week that are also just for the professors, which I think is really great too, because, you know, of course, we can't forget about the professors, you know, mental health and well-being as well. So I think it's really great what Professor Natalie Martin does.
Yeah, and that occurs down in the Wellness Center, which also has workout equipment. There's a cycle down there, an elliptical, rower, some treadmills, and then 5 through 25-pound dumbbells. And I've gone down there a few times in the winter when it's been cold and gone down and run. So that's nice to have. And then this semester, there was a new addition to the schedule, the Good Life and the Practice of Law, taught by Professor Creel. And my understanding is that it's a class about wellness.
It's pretty extraordinary. I mean, from a viewpoint as a staff person observing curriculum and the lengths one must go to achieve a new class, let alone something that would be maybe not looked at in the same way as a torts 2 or something considered more doctrinal or serious. I think it's a huge breakthrough, and it serves as again, a really strong indicator of how seriously the school takes well-being for our students by offering this class. So I'm hearing really good things about it. It sounds terrific, and I hope that it keeps going. It's really quite something. I don't hear this from my peers in other schools in terms of the kind of thing like that schools are doing. You know, other schools have the dog, you know, therapy dog. Some of them have them in the library that you can check out like a book. I wish we could go there on that one. It would be fun. But, you know, I think we're really creative here.
I think my favorite part about the fact that we now have a class about mental health is we've all decided at this point that we want to be lawyers, but I don't think we truly understand how much we are taking on, especially when it comes to potentially the trauma that you could be exposed to. I just default in the criminal law world, but of course there's still this aspect in civil law. But when you are working with victims of, heinous crimes and you are exposing yourself to maybe the trauma of somebody else, you can still take on somebody else's trauma in dealing with their cases. And I've heard some lawyers talk about the fact that they didn't realize how much that was going to affect them mentally. So I think to have a class to prepare you for that is really just not only, I think, unheard of, but really amazing that Professor Creel put this all together. There was a day, I think last week when, or maybe 2 weeks ago, when students were walking around with balloons because she had provided balloons to all of the students. And even as someone not in the class, I was so excited to see all of these kids walking around with balloons. And so it's really amazing the impact that Professor Creel has managed to do, not only for their students, but for everybody else who just gets to witness all of this. Because I know my day was made watching everybody walk around with balloons that day. And I think it's really great that this school is trying to help students prepare for the actual profession and not just help them with their mental health as students as well.
I think, Christina, you mentioned that one of the things that you liked about going to yoga down in the wellness center was kind of breaking down a barrier, and everybody's doing yoga down in the meditation center. When you go, it's the professors and the students. And I think one of the other things that kind of breaks a barrier between students and professors, and also kind of pushes a sense of, hey, it's not just all about the law, and it's not just all about studying, and it's not just all about working billable hours in the future, is the fun committee. And Bonnie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it started kind of during the pandemic to keep students involved, and it's kind of just stuck around. And yesterday they had an event out on the back patio where there were students performing songs and dances. There were professors, the dean, I think, sang. Professor Schremer was making jokes, as he always does. And the New Mexico poet laureate, Levi Romero, was out there and did some poetry reading. And there were a lot of students out there. It was a pretty big event. And it was students and professors just intermixed all watching this. And they've also stuck around with the Arbitrary and Delicious, which is cooking on Zoom. Last time it was veggie burgundy, I think. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the French word correctly, but it was veggie burgundy, and it was pretty good. And I think that's something that's kind of stuck around and is a lot of fun.
Not necessarily fun committee related, but I think something that I really enjoyed my first semester of law school was watching our soccer team go against the medical school's soccer team. I don't know if they're really like the unofficial official soccer team of UNM School of Law, but really, if you love soccer or you just love competition, a lot of students with no background in playing soccer have joined this team. And when we get to go up against the medical school, everybody is there. There are signs galore. Everybody is representing UNM School of Law to the best that they can. And I think that was the most fun thing I've done because just the camaraderie between your classmates so early on in the semester, where you all get to band together for a good cause of, UNM's soccer team, hoping that we can get the MedMal Cup. And I think things like that are really what helps students build, again, that social support and try to put the homework down for a night and go out and enjoy something outside with their friends and even the professors that show up. I think that that's one of my best memories of my 1L year, and I think it will continue to be one of my favorite memories and something I do every year.
Yeah, the MedMal Cup. I don't know how official the soccer team is, but at this point it feels pretty official. It's kind of right under the United in terms of sporting events for the law school, I think. And there was a lot of tailgating this year. A couple of professors showed up. I think the dean was there. I don't know. But it's definitely a motivating event every fall. And I heard they do pretty well outside of just playing against the doctors as well. And in terms of other sporting events, the Women's Golf Association started up this year, which I thought was a pretty awesome new club or society. I thought it was a great idea, and it seems to be a lot of fun. They go out and, I mean, you play golf, which is something that I think is pretty common and kind of stereotypically a law hobby. And it's been fun to see an organization that takes people of all skill levels or people who've never done it before and gives them an opportunity to kind of play at their level, start it, learn it. They've had a couple clinics and kind of develop an enjoyment for it.
I think the great thing too is if you're not into going out and watching soccer games, that's fine. We've got groups that are not about being active if that's not your forte. I mean, we've got the Social Justice Book Club. I've personally never attended. I like to read the books and try to pretend like I can finish them in a reasonable amount of time, but you know, it's law school. So reading for fun is very difficult. But their books are always really great. I always enjoy them, and I have every single one that I haven't purchased on my wish list of things to read over my breaks. I think that it's really awesome. We also just started a graphic novel book club. The first meeting was last week. So if you are a total nerd like me and you like graphic novels, comic books, things like that, that's also a really cool way to meet other people who have the same interests as you. I like the level of commitment for graphic novel club feels like it should be less than Social Justice Book Club. So that was one of the things that attracted me to it, was still kind of having a book club, but it maybe being graphic novels are, in my opinion, just a little bit easier and faster to get through. The faculty member in charge of that one is Professor Gibson Rankin, who's also a total comic nerd. Her and I have talked a few times about our favorite comics and how they relate to the law specifically. So it's cool that we can kind of take our interests outside of law school, but also in a way relate them to the practice of law. So if you're not interested in doing things like golf or playing soccer or anything like that, there's also other things that you can do from the comfort of your own home in a cozy blanket during those New Mexico winters.
Yeah, and outside of the clubs that are kind of tailored to, you know, an event that is for relaxation, I think a lot of the other clubs that are law focused do a good job of trying to get out and do some stuff that maybe isn't law focused, despite being a law focused club. Association of Public Interest Law this weekend's having a 5K. It's still a virtual 5K, so you participate, you know, with a couple of friends, but they put up I believe they put up all the times afterwards, and everybody participates over the same 24 to 48 hours. And then the Environmental Law Society, I know last year did a couple of hikes, and this year put out that they were working with some trail restoration groups to get out and restore some trails in the New Mexico or Albuquerque metro area, which is pretty awesome and a good opportunity to get outside. And even if you're, you know, still part of a legal club, I think it's good that a lot of the clubs that are focused on a certain type of law or somebody who's interested in pursuing a certain legal career still take some time to get outside or focus on something that isn't just a textbook. So we've got a huge variety of programs here at UNM. Christina, which do you think you're like most proud of? If you had to tell like one person from out of town about it, what would you tell them?
That's such a hard question. For me, I have to say joining MALSA was a really good experience for me. I really liked that there is not even a small group, a huge, you know, student organization dedicated to Mexican American law students, and that really spoke to me. And I remember during orientation going up and handing them my card to be like, here are my dues, I want my t-shirt. I brought a t-shirt home to my Nana, who was super excited about it. I had no idea I knew that UNM had a strong emphasis on diversity. I didn't expect to find such a supportive community of students who I feel like I can relate to on a personal level, where we have similar backgrounds, we've had similar, struggles, or our families have had similar struggles. And I think that was my favorite. And during orientation, I don't remember who had said it, but they had said, join one of these groups, even if you aren't a member necessarily, maybe if you aren't even Mexican American, but you want to know more about this community, just join. Same with like NELSA. If you want to learn more about, the Native American Student Law Association, they are amazing. They have some really great panels, a lot of like, hey, here's our perspective on property law. And it's so educational, and it's so great, even for people who aren't members of that community, to understand, the perspective of a certain community. And I think that is one of my favorite things about UNM. And that's something I would recommend to other students as well, as get to know, all of these different groups and see their perspective.
I think the thing I'm most proud of at UNM, and I'm going to give you some credit here. We started a newsletter this year with student resources that goes out monthly. And Christina kind of helmed that effort, and it goes out every month. It has everything from focus on what resources are here at the school as a whole, in the law school. We've had some recipes on there, some ideas for how you can get after your physical health, and recognizing certain people in our community every year, and certain groups within our community every month. And I think that's a really good program, and I'm excited to see that go forward. Bonnie, I'm curious, as a staff member and a member of the administration, kind of what are you most proud of here at our community?
Well, from the past, which continues in the future, I think the SHAC counselor being here is something that is really important and remarkable. For me, it has made my job easier when someone comes to me with an issue and I can say, well, we have someone just right here. So it takes away that barrier of having to go. It sounds funny, but people don't like having to go all the way across campus. And we're on the North Campus. It's pretty isolated over here. But more importantly, I think it's really reduced the stigma, because the person is visible, and our counselors have been really supportive of doing other programming in addition to just individual counseling. They've been part of wellness campaigns with mental health screenings. When we've had tragedies happen, they've been instrumental in helping us with grief. They've been part of our celebrations. So it's neat. I like that a lot. It's been, to me, the most impactful. But what I am most excited about is that we have this. You two, especially, and the state bar have this well-being focus as a thing. It's not been that before. So it's really exciting. It's cutting edge and extremely impactful. So I'm grateful to both of you for what you've done for the school. And I give you a lot of compliments and gratitude.
Bonnie, I think it's important to also recognize you, because I remember during orientation, you talking about the importance of mental health and the availability of SHAC and the resources available to anybody who was struggling with any kind of mental health issues. So I do applaud you for your advocacy, even if it's not totally in your job description. You are here to let everybody know what resources they have available. And I think that really spoke to me during orientation. And I hope that you don't ever change that, because it really did help me as a little 1L in orientation. And when you talk about bringing down those barriers and ending that stigma, that's really my personal goal for this newsletter, is to open up the conversation and to say, like, hey, you know what, April specifically is Autistic Acceptance Month. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the prevalence of autism. Let's talk about, all of these notions that people might have that are completely wrong. And that's where I hope to come with the newsletter, is to educate people both on different communities that are out there that maybe don't have a voice in the School of Law because there isn't an organization around it, and there's no other way for people to readily learn about it, and to give people a better access to important phone numbers or resources that are out there, because like you said, no one wants to go to campus, no one wants to look up any of the resources. So I'm okay with taking that on and saying, here are the resources I have found in our community, or maybe even beyond our community, that might be able to help anyone out there. And if the newsletter even helps one person out there, I think it's 100% worth it.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome addition to kind of the full package of well-being stuff that we're putting on here at the school. And we're really lucky to have Bonnie to support us. And the state bar has been super supportive as well. They brought in a nutritionist last semester, kind of right before finals, and also therapy dogs. And that was a pretty awesome day, because I always love playing with dogs. So we're lucky here to have a state bar that's really supportive as well. There's always stuff we could do more of. Christina, I'll let you go first. What do you think that UNM School of Law could do to provide more wellness resources or initiatives?
I think something I would have benefited personally when I started was to have some kind of access to resources regarding insurance. They said during orientation that the average age of our 1Ls was 26, and I am 26. And when I had my previous job, it was easy peasy for me because I had free insurance. I didn't need to worry about that. And so once I had to leave my job to come to law school at 26 years old, I didn't have insurance anymore. And I had to worry about, how do I get insurance in a state I've only been to for all of 2 days? And how do I figure out what I need in order to maybe even cover like medications or prescriptions that I have? That was a big concern for me, and something that I hope that next year we can help 1Ls figure out. You know, maybe you do struggle with something in the mental health or physical health realm that you have a prescription for, and you need to know what kind of insurance you need to get in order to cover that prescription. I think it would be beneficial to do something, provide some kind of pamphlet of information for students, or even have like a little talk about, here, let me walk you through things like this, as well as our students who are neurodivergent, which is something that is close to my heart. And maybe say, hey, you need to be aware of maybe your learning style. And here is maybe the best way to take notes for you. Here are the accommodations you can have access to if you need them. Here's what you are allowed to ask for. I think that would be really helpful for students, and is on my personal list of things I'd like to be able to do for the 1Ls next year.
Yeah, I think those sound like great ideas, especially SHAC, I think, provides a lot of resources that up on North Campus sometimes we don't hear about. I know that they provide like a shot clinic and things like that. And I think it would be great to hear some more information about that, especially when some of us are between insurance or just starting insurance, or doing what we need to do to get insurance during law school. And I think that sounds like a great idea. My idea kind of pales in comparison. I think it would be great to get some more equipment in the gym. I think if we had a bench press or a squat rack in there, I think it would increase the utilization and provide a little more variety for people who want to work out like that. I know I'd benefit from it, and I have some friends who I think would as well. And I think that would be a great addition.
This one specific to a situation. Our SHAC counselor, Tony, had resigned this semester because she had a personal family need where she had to leave the state. So now we're in a hiring process, and it's for me just staying on top of it to make sure we get a good person replacing her and make it as timely as possible. So I'm not worried that we're in any danger of losing that position or that person, but just staying on top of that's important for me, that we can do for the upcoming year. And I like both of your ideas about the other stuff. The insurance stuff's tricky. It used to be different. And then when all the stuff changed with getting health insurance and the exchanges and all that stuff, the composition of their insurance coverage is much different than it used to be. And, you know, it's not as comprehensive, and there's a lot of other nuances, but I think you're right. We need to be better at providing that information for everybody, so you don't have to go finding it. It's hard to find.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Bonnie. I'm glad that that's staying at the forefront of the administration, is getting a new SHAC counselor hired up, because I know that Tony was so valuable to the law school and was just an awesome asset. And if you're out there listening and you have an idea, go ahead and email well@sbnm.org if you have any more ideas on wellness resources, and they'd love to hear from you. So we're kind of coming up to the end of our time. I thought it would be just kind of fun to close out by just going in a circle and saying one thing we did this week for our wellness personally that we're proud of. I can go ahead and start off. I'm very particular about at least one day a weekend. I don't do anything law school related, and I try to do two. But this weekend, I went up to the Manal Trailhead and did part of the, I think, Gun Springs Trail, and had some fun doing that and spent some time outside. So did anybody else do anything you're particularly proud of?
Same for me. I took a road trip, a day trip with two of my friends that I've known for years. So we went up to Valles Caldera and did a hike. And then we went and checked out Fenton Lake and had a picnic and then came back. It was a beautiful day and it just felt great to be outside and not thinking about anything except, being in the moment of being outdoors. It was great.
I have been working on sewing my dress for a barrister's ball. I absolutely love to sew, and I bought a dress from Goodwill like 2 years ago for $1. It doesn't fit or anything, and I decided to turn that into my dress for the evening. So a lot of taking things in, replacing things, adding stuff. It's going to be unrecognizable when I'm done, but I always like to have a creative outlet to kind of de-stress, and that has been a fun project for me to just kind of prepare for a fun little, evening with my classmates that has nothing to do with law.
That's awesome that you're tapping into your creativity and focusing on your wellness on the weekends. I'm glad. And I think that brings us to the end of our time. Thank you today for listening to Legal Wellbeing in Action. Tune in next month to hear about the Attorney General's office.
Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the State Bar of New Mexico's Wellbeing Committee and the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. All editing and sound mixing was done by Blue Sky eLearn. Intro music is by Gil Flores. The views of the presenters are that of their own and are not endorsed by the State Bar of New Mexico. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, or legal advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.